And
I mean,
So my screen went weird here. Okay. All right. So, urban tea homes. So we're talking about urban tea homes and finish off on a few of his interesting notions.
Are some of these lighter than the other ones?
Yeah, well, yeah. he's pretty deep, isn't he? I think you'll find this interesting, and we're going to be done with urban homes and move on to somebody else.
I don't think we'll ever be done with urban.
It's hard to ever be done with urban homes, that's for sure.
So bimodal, we just,
Yeah.
I mean, just those first two words, bimodal consciousness.
Oh my God.
Keep in mind, this is the closest we have to our own personal theologian, since he's from Swanee, and that's where he spent most of his career. So we have to claim one as our own. He's the one. So he talked about the evolution of the priest, bimodal consciousness. And what he talks about on bimodal consciousness is there's two different types of consciousness. There's the receptive mode and the action mode. And the action mode is that of logic and control, analysis and prediction, and it operates in a world of concepts and systems. And the reception mode is association, surrender, intuition, and surprise. It operates more in a world of symbol, ritual, and story.
I think he should have taught Greek.
So the totality of bimodal consciousness is within all of us, whether or not we're aware of it, that we spend parts of our lives doing both these things, being receptive or in action mode. And when you think about action mode, it's what our society values in terms of being productive in society and working and contributing and making a difference. And that's all action mode things that our society values. But he says the priest is someone who stands with one foot in both the receptive and the action mode. And in terms of both being connected with God and hearing and listening and having that quietness and stillness of spirit and being able to hear God, and then also being able to translate that and communicate that to other people as they try to lead people towards God. In the work they do in helping people connect and find their connection with God. So he says religion is the movement from chaos to cosmos.
that's good.
He says the priest is more than just a sacrificial official, but a mystagogue.
Whoops.
Whoa, what's that mean?
Mystagogue.
That
Someone
one didn't work in Scrabble.
Someone who leads you into a mystery, leads you through and into understanding of a mystery.
Yeah.
Bimodal consciousness, mystagogue, men.
So to lead people in the mystery that surrounds our lives. I thought this was kind of interesting. He talks about the evolution of the priest. I mean, going way back, even before Christianity, just way back into the deepest recesses of human history, evolution of a priest, starting with a shaman. And what the characteristics of a shaman is the ability to heal and to connect with spirits. The shaman is an archetypal figure or symbol, a type of Theotokos, which is the Orthodox always refer to Mary as the Theotokos, the God bearer. It's Greek for she who bears God or the one who bears God. And the shaman is a archetypal figure of a Theotokos, one who bears God to humankind.
I have a definition of mystagogue.
Okay.
A mystagogue is a person who initiates others into mystic beliefs, and an educator or person who has knowledge of sacred mysteries of a belief system. Now, here you go. Get your ears open. Another word for mystagogue is hierophant. So we got mystagogue and hierophant, the same thing.
Hierophant. All right, I haven't heard that one.
Hierophant, hierophant.
Hierophant. Okay.
How much really increases every Sunday morning?
If you use one word you don't know to define another word you don't know, you still don't know anything.
This is Vocabulary Sunday.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Homes.
Next week we'll have a test.
Just see it on the test.
So, characteristics of shaman including magical flight, which is like out-of-body experiencing and communicating with spirits. Shamans are known for creating imagery and storytelling. Anthropologists actually make distinguishing definitions between shamans and priests.
This line of thought reminds me an awful lot of Joseph Campbell. If anybody's familiar with that writer.
No.
And The Power of Myth is his opus.
Great book.
And it's basically a survey of civilization relating to
Religion.
religious thought.
Interesting.
I think we're living through a power of myth right now.
Yeah, right. So Nelson, he talks about some of the same kind of stuff.
Right. But he does it in a cross-cultural way.
Compared to.
And there are all kinds of names for shaman or priest in different cultures. And I was impressed by Campbell's work in that it wasn't focused on Western civilizations as so much of our literature is, but it's takes in a lot of the Eastern perspectives as well. And they're remarkably similar through the ages. He takes it back to the caveman days and brings it forward through these various cultures.
Interesting. Yeah, in some of Urban's writings, in terms of evolution of the priest, he has a very large. I mean, he has a book called The Priest in the Community, where I got a lot of this out of. And there's a large section talking about the evolution of the priest, and he is in his writing, in Urban's writing, he is trying to go beyond just Christianity and just talk about the priest in general, the priest as the person who connects a community to God, not necessarily the Christian priest, but the priest in the generic sense. So I think he probably is talking about a lot of the same kind of things as that writer you mentioned.
And then at the heart of it all is that Campbell identifies it's a basic part of who we are as human beings. That there's this quest, no matter how defined or how approached, it's a basic human need and expression through cultures and through the centuries. Yes,
right. Yeah, I find that interesting.
To me, shaman has always been sort of like an Indian medicine man, in my mind, that's what a shaman is.
Well, you're definitely right. Yes, that's the idea, that they're more connected with spirits, and that's where they get their power and authority from, communication with spirits.
In that last statement, the priest receives credentials as a result of special education and training. That depends on who educates him or her and trains him or her. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but
right,
you got to know the teacher before you know the student, I would think.
Right. Sure.
Well, some are educated through peyote buttons.
Yeah, there's the plan.
I always think of shamans as Native American or some other non-Western or culture where there is no education system to teach them that. They learned it through their mentor or whatever,
right,
and experience. So
Don't we learn mainly starting with our parents? I mean, if your parents go to the Baptist church, you don't run up to the Roman Catholic church unless you're dating a Roman Catholic girl, I guess.
yeah, that's true until we get older, and then we maybe have a mind of our own and find our own direction in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you like to be a member of his family sitting at the breakfast table talking about all this? Can you imagine living with him? Jesus. No, with Father,
Urban Holmes.
whatever we call him.
Oh.
I have a good vocabulary if I did.
I bet.
That ain't too.
I think the Holmes point is that there is a strong element of mysticism in any religious orientation, and it's one
Yes.
that is probably not as well acknowledged within our own faith tradition as it actually is. And I think that's the point he's
They're
making.
derivative specialists.
You're probably right, Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds right to me. Yeah, the anthropologists say the shaman is the where others derive out of. So the priest is an evolution from a shaman. So is the prophet, the medicine man, they all derive from the basic shaman, who is the original spiritual leader or character who connects with the spirit world.
Thank you.
He says, to some extent, some parishioners talking to a priest might have a sense that they're having conversation with God through the priest. And this relates back to our more ancient evoking expectation of the shaman in our unconsciousness, the shaman who talks to the spirits. So if you're having that kind of a thought process or experience and talking to a priest, that evokes a more ancient kind of humans talking to the shaman who talks directly to the spirits kind of mentality.
Just for the fun of it, I Googled derivative analyst, and it says a derivative analyst applies complex math formulas and builds computer algorithms to evaluate financial data, detect investment trends, recommend asset selection strategy. He or she works directly with corporate portfolio managers, proprietary traders, and risk managers. I guess it can have a spin-off into religion, be tied with religion too. Interesting choice of words.
Right.
Through my childhood experiences, my best friend, this is Jennifer speaking, not in the picture here. My best friend is Catholic. It was and is Catholic. And so, and I was raised Episcopalian, but I was always fascinated by their church because it seemed so much, quote, holier, unquote, than ours. And I was just sort of blown away by how they revered the priest. And I guess sort of as a shaman, this is fitting in with this discussion. But as I came into more of my age of reason, whatever you want to call when you mature, I started seeing the differences with our church and the Catholic Church, where it seemed to me that parishioners were very easily led, swayed, and whatever that priest said, it was pretty scary. I mean, that was God speaking. And so
It's your sister right now.
and yes, and my sister has bought into a church but it's a radical Catholic church. It's much worse than what we're speaking about. But I think that's one reason that I have always much preferred the Episcopal church. Although there might be a few priests that want to be considered a shaman or whatever. But and that's all I have to say about that.
Well, Jennifer, don't forget in those days that your Catholic friend and all her family, and most of them used to go and make confessions
That's right.
to the priest. So when you're talking to a man and confessing your sins to him, I guess there's a much tighter association with him than there is in our Episcopal church, where we don't regularly go and make confessions.
Well, that's exactly right. That is the big difference.
But it
But
is
I-
in our prayer book. though.
But I felt it was dangerous. Even when, as a teenager, I thought it was a little dangerous.
Yeah, because you're not learning to think for yourself, and that's what I like about Episcopal church is of course I was raised it, so it wasn't a choice per se, but that reason was one of the founding principles of logical reason, and that's the way I am. I'm a thinker, at least I think I am.
The quest for an intercessor, I think, is found in all religions or theological thought. And again, I think that's how do you grapple with the great unknown, the great mystery? You need help or guidance and seek that in various forms. And the concept of an intercessor, as you can see, is certainly woven into our liturgy.
Right.
Think of Moses and the burning bush and bringing the laws to the people. He was the one who saw God or saw a manifestation, but the people did not.
And he has spoken through the prophets.
Yes.
Yes.
But he had to climb down a real steep mountain.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
In his bare feet.
This says the power of the priest belongs to him not because of external authority, as in a professional accreditation, but because of the priestly image rooted in the consciousness of the receptive mode of knowing. Oh yeah, so I was going through my notes last night and I realized I missed a couple of other things. I meant to retitle this, but anyway, so a couple of interesting things that said. Pieces of us by our intentional action need to die if we are to become the person that is in God's vision.
Is that ego? The ego?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a religious term called mortification, which probably you see more in the Catholic tradition, speaking to the Catholics, but it's an intentional action of pruning away the parts of life to make ourselves better. Hey, those are all great connection you guys made. All right, so that's it for Urban.
All right.
He was Urban the Third. I mean,
He was.
was he the first priest in the family? Do you know?
No, I think his father was also a priest.
Oh, okay.
So they talk like that around the dinner table.
That's where he got it. I wonder if there's an Urban the Sixth.
Sounds like a pope.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you for next week.
Okay, Peter.
That time to set up. See you
Bye,
all.
Peter.
Enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.
Well, Keith Ward has some interesting things to say about evidence for God, evidence for the existence of God. And this is some of his topics that are, so he is a theologian from England. He is an Anglican priest. And this is just a little bit of his background biography. Born in 1938, Northumberland.
Air Force man, you see that?
Yep.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
He was a candidate for Christ Church, Oxford until 2003. His interests are comparative theology and relationship between science and religion. And a lot of his writing is on that topic. As you see, he's highly educated. A couple of 3 MAs and a doctorate, or 2 MAs and a doctorate rather. He's a professor at Glasgow and the University of St. Andrews. He has a nice CV going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Good heavens.
Yeah. Wait till you see his publication list. It's 2 pages long.
Oh,
You see, he started publishing in 1969, and it's, you know, several books each decade.
They're books and not papers.
Well, it's a mix. Some of them are books and some of them are papers. But he wrote quite a few books, actually. So
He's still alive?
yeah, he's written recently. Well, it's like 2006, the last one I have on the list there. But
So he's 82, so he's got a long life to do all this.
right.
Weighty topics. Very
Yes.
weighty topics.
Yeah. So basics on his viewpoints while believing in the truth of Christianity maintains that other faiths also contain fundamental truths and wisdoms.
They're like ours.
He views that religious truths lie in the personal spiritual experiences.
That makes sense.
He freely states no one religion can claim to hold the key to all universal truths. He is equally firm in his belief that religion is an important positive part of the human experience. All right, so into some of his comments on evidence for God, which I think
It's an interesting graphic you have, David.
oh yeah.
Nice to see something beside the coronavirus.
Now, religion is in us at the molecular level, the subatomic level.
So he makes this argument that we don't need to know about the inner nature of matter. You know, we know that the atoms are complex. They're if you go deeper and deeper into atoms, you have the neutrons and protons and all the empty space and so forth. However, we don't have to know about all that in order to fulfill our material needs. And he uses that as an analogy to say that the same way we don't have to totally understand how spiritual world works, because a lot of it is a mystery to us and we'll never know in a lifetime. Doesn't mean we have to know it in order to live successfully in the spiritual world, just like we can live in the material world without fully understanding how atoms work. And looking for evidence for God or the spirit world or spiritual reality is not going to be the same as looking for evidence of the natural world, like some exotic animal.
or an invisible teapot. He's English.
Yes.
That's right.
So looking for spiritual evidence is like looking for footprints or chewed leaves that will show an animal has been there, but a spiritual being does not leave footprints or chew leaves.
Yeah, that was a good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Quantum physics.
We get to the world of quantum physics, which is unlike the world of the solid three-dimensional colored objects in the common sense world, but all that empty space and quarks and all that sort of stuff that it's hard for us normal people who aren't physicists to understand.
Yeah, my head explodes when I try to think about physics.
I mean, we've all read about that kind of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
you kind of sort of understand some of it, right? So like trying to understand Einstein.
Our son is gentle to me when he explains anything about what he's doing.
Does he have background in that area?
He's a nuclear engineer
Oh,
for
is he really? Okay, yeah.
Washington, D.C. Got a couple of master's degrees in
Be interesting to see how he responds to Keith Ward's writings, because in Keith Ward's writings, he brings up a lot of deep science in his writing, actually.
Well, be gentle with us, Dave. I like that.
So even though we don't understand quantum physics, most of us are not going to deny that it's true or that it's real, just on the basis of the physical world as we experience it or interpret it. So he's using this again as an analogy, saying, even though we may not understand the spiritual world, that doesn't mean we need to deny it or reject it just because we don't understand it. Just like we don't understand quantum physics, aside from some people's sons, most of us don't understand quantum physics. But rather the appearance of how the world appears to us is filtered through our small and inefficient brains.
Are you talking to me, Dave?
It's not singling anybody out.
Yeah.
So with a face mask.
So some of the ways that Keith Ward thinks there's evidence for God. Relying on this analogy of how we understand the world, and even though we don't understand the physical world, we don't deny quantum physics is real, and we don't understand the spiritual world, we don't deny that it's real either. It says there are 6 main areas of human experience from which you can see the evidence of God. And they are arts, morality, philosophy, science, religion, and personal experience. And ever since Peter left, I've been acutely aware of the time, trying not to overrun into church. I know church is about to start, so
Yeah, it's about time.
I think we should call it for today and pick up with Keith Ward next week.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you.
I'm going to take my small brain and rest it for next